So, welcome to another book review. This one here is by Lucinda Hawksley, Bitten by Witch Fever, Wallpaper and Arsenic in the Victorian Home. I picked this book up a couple years ago. It was actually a Christmas present that I asked for. It was not cheap, but I'm super glad my friend got it for me. I'm very grateful. So this book has a really interesting format. It's got some heft to it. And what it is it's got patterns, and then in between each section of patterns is the text. So I really like that. I like that somebody took the time to come up with an interesting look for the book. Beautiful colors. This is a book about the history, as it says, of arsenic in the Victorian home and in Victorian home, but also a little bit in textile design. It's a very authoritative book. And one of the reasons that I really wanted to get it was because it has beautiful reproductions of all these Victorian wallpapers that originally probably had arsenic in them and were probably poisoning the people whose homes they were in. I'm just trying to center this on the camera here. And if you are into wallpaper design, if you are into textile design, into pattern design, if you're into sort of the history of home decor or the history of fashion, I really recommend getting this book. It's a really, really beautiful publication. Lots of information, very well researched, and of course it has all these beautiful wallpaper patterns to look at. So I mean, just as a coffee table book, it's really interesting. But of course, again, like I said, if you're into design, if you're into interior design and costume design and patterning, this is also a really wonderful resource. The colors are really great. The book is actually, the paper quality is really nice. It's also not like an overly glossy paper. Sometimes I find that's a little bit annoying in art books when the paper is overly glossy. I like, personally, a paper that's not super reflective. So yeah, I would really recommend getting this book, Bitten by Witch Fever. I won't make this a super long review. I'm trying to keep them a little bit shorter because they're going up on Instagram. But I would definitely, like, this is just so gorgeous. This is beautiful. But yeah, if you can get this book, again, I don't remember exactly how much it was. This was £28, which I think like in Europe it was like 30 euros, which is not too bad for a book like this, actually. But yeah, I really enjoy it, and I really just enjoy having it to flip through. The greens that the Victorians used, specifically this arsenic green, were really special. Of course, very toxic, and this is the time when you also had new printing techniques coming out. You had lots of new synthetic colors and dyes being discovered, and so this coincided with the rise of a new middle and upper middle class who wanted to decorate their homes and who could now purchase wallpapers and purchase all sorts of fabrics. And if you've ever seen a picture of like an Victorian interior, like an actual Victorian interior, they could be extremely cluttered. I mean, they just put patterns on everything. But that's because for the first time, these were accessible to people. In children's nurseries, in the living room, or the parlor as they would call it, in the bedrooms. You just had so much color. And this was really also when people were just starting to really have the concept of childhood as being a special time, and being, you know, if you could afford it, to have a special room for the children where they could play, as opposed to your children going from like, okay, you can walk, time to go to work or help around the house, but really having a special room like a nursery that was just for the children in the home. That was something that had previously only been available to very, very high levels of society, like royalty or like the elites. So it was a really big thing that you could suddenly have these wallpapers coming out to decorate children's nurseries. And unfortunately, as this book has discussed, I mean, I already kind of knew this, but I think this book also really helps bring the tragedy home that a lot of these wallpapers had arsenic in them, and children would see these bright colors and they would lick the wallpaper. If you've ever known what little kids do when they see anything that looks like food, kids learn by touching and tasting things, and they would lick the wallpapers, or they would put fake grapes or fake flowers that had been colored with arsenic in their mouths, and it would poison them, and many children died as a result of this. So there is this really tragic history of arsenic in the home, and it made a lot of people sick, but I mean, it also just really specifically killed a lot of children. And it was a huge, huge fight to get wallpaper with arsenic in it banned in England. As this book points out, it happened much earlier in other countries. People recognized that arsenic was really a very deadly poison. It should not be in your home. But in England, it kept going for a long time. And I mean, this is very modern, just to take a break from the sad part. Like this this cross-stitch pattern set in this is such, I feel, you could see this on like the German brand Blutgeschwister. They do a lot of stuff with cross-stitch sort of reworking, like a digital print. That's super on trend. I feel like a lot of this stuff actually people talk about, you know, like Paisley. Paisley is super in again at the moment. Some of these soft pastels I feel have been very on trend. Like William Morris prints have definitely been on trend the last sort of decade, but especially the last 5 years. So, but yeah, there's this really interesting and often very tragic backstory with arsenic in the home. And also with William Morris, a lot of people, I actually didn't know this about him, is that he owned an arsenic mine. And a lot of people have really tried to reconcile the fact that William Morris was all about workers' rights and treating your workers properly, and then had people working in an arsenic mine and making people sick working in factories using arsenic in the wallpaper, and just like never admitted ever that there was a problem with this, even though there was a lot of evidence that there was. So yeah, if you are looking to add a really beautiful book to your collection, I would definitely recommend Bitten by Witch Fever. Super good book, very informative, a lot of times a little bit sad, but also just part of the history of interior design and pattern design, so I would really recommend picking it up.